Hello, book people. P.T. Hylton here. I'm here today to talk to you about three crime-related books that I read recently. The first one I want to talk about is Chimeras by E. Giorgi. This book is a police procedural with a kind of a unique twist. Our main character is a guy who has a unique power in that he has like the sense of smell and hearing of an animal. So he can smell all kinds of stuff and gather all kind of clues through his nose. Other than that, though, it's a pretty like straightforward police procedural. The title Chimeras, if you're not familiar with what a chimera is in genetics, it's an organism that has more than one set of genetic materials in it, which can lead to multiple blood types or all kinds of different strange things. And throughout the story, we learn about our main character and some mysterious stuff that happened to him in his past that kind of led him to where he is today. What kind of really set the book apart for me and made it a really fun, interesting read was that the author clearly did like a ton of research. The police procedural part of it is clearly very well researched. It's felt very authentic anyway. I don't know. I'm not a police officer. Maybe it's all wrong, but it felt very authentic, and I really feel like she researched that a lot. Also, the science. The author is a professional geneticist in her daily life, a scientist, and she did a great job of, sometimes when you get somebody who's really smart in their field like that, they just dump way too much information on you. She did a good job of basically conveying the information that was needed for the story in an authentic way that felt great without like just being a huge info dump. So if you like mysteries, you like police procedurals, you like stories about heroes that are a little different, this guy is pretty interesting, the hero of this story, as we kind of learn about his past, and kind of he's got some things he regrets in his past he's kind of trying to make up for. So as we learn about all that stuff, it adds a lot of interesting complications to it, and it works really well as a mystery. So I recommend checking out Chimeras. The second book is by one of my favorite authors, Giorgi Pelicanos. This is The Way Home. The Way Home is the story of basically a father and a son, Christopher Flynn and his father, who kind of just goes by Flynn. I think his name is Thomas Flynn, but they always just call him Flynn in the book. The son is a teenager. He's kind of rebelling. He's starting to get into some trouble with the law. The father's trying to deal with that, trying to help his son stay on the straight and narrow path. And actually, as the novel opens, the son's actually incarcerated in a juvenile detention kind of facility, and we follow some of the things that happened to him in the juvenile detention facility, and the father back at home trying to cope with stuff. But then something happens where the son's trying to kind of straighten out his life and kind of gets mixed up into some trouble, and the father and the son are both kind of pulled into it. Then, like in all Giorgi Pelicanos books, stuff kind of spins wildly out of control, and they have to go to kind of drastic measures to solve the problem. What I liked about this book a lot, first of all, it was the first standalone book I've ever read by Giorgi Pelicanos. I've read 2 of his series, and he was also a writer on The Wire, and I've watched that, so I've seen a lot of what he can do in a little bit longer form. It was interesting to see the standalone novel. And the themes of this one are very interesting, too, because both the father and the son are kind of feeling the pressure of society as far as what they think society is demanding of them, and what the way that they want to be masculine and appear to be a man, quote unquote, to society. And they both have different views of what that means, and both those views really kind of get them into trouble and aren't very healthy. So it's an interesting kind of look at how men bow to what they think society expects of them in a lot of places. So very interesting theme going on, but on top of that, like always with Pelicanos, great crime story. The great thing about Pelicanos is he has like a really dry prose style. He's like just tells you what happened in a very straightforward way, but then his dialogue is very colorful and very entertaining. So it's a really interesting juxtaposition of that creative, witty, just natural sounding dialogue that's oftentimes kind of laugh out loud funny, mixed with this really, really dry, let me just tell you what happened with no embellishment kind of prose style. If you haven't ever read Giorgi Pelicanos, this would actually be a pretty good place to start. So I recommend The Way Home too. All right, guys, I have a true confession to make. I lied to you at the beginning of this video. I said there's going to be 3 crime-related things. This third item is neither a crime novel nor a novel, nor one thing. It's actually 2 volumes of the spy espionage series Queen and Country, written by Greg Rucka with art by all kinds of various people. Let me just say I love Queen and Country. It's the story of this British intelligence agent named Tara Chase. She works for an organization called SIS, or the Secret Intelligence Service, and she's a minder, it's called, which means basically this service has people stationed permanently in different countries all over the world, but when something goes wrong that's like too much for them to handle, or a little it would put their long-term relationships in the country at risk, the minder comes in and handles it, and that's Tara. What makes her such a cool character is she's so tough and so no nonsense. She'll do anything on the job to get the job done. She's just really tough. She's kind of like almost like a James Bond type. But then when she comes home, she's very much a real person. Like we see a lot of the struggles she has dealing with the things she's had to do, and she's actually pretty bad at dealing with the things, the kind of the fallout and the emotional fallout and of the things she's had to do in her job in this position. So we get to watch her kind of be very self-destructive in a lot of ways, and just the way that she is when she's at home. So those parts are just as entertaining as when she is out on missions. This is a graphic novel. I'll show you the art styles. One kind of criticism and cool thing about this, I can't decide how I feel about it, is every story arc, so every like 3 or 4 issues, there's a new artist. So what's cool about that is, it's always different interpretations, which is fun, but sometimes they're so different that it's like a little bit hard to tell for a few minutes who's who. Like you're trying to be like, is that Tara or not? Especially there's one really that leaps out at you, which is in this volume 1. Most of the time Tara is drawn like as a very normal looking person. In the 3rd volume of this, the artist drew her as more of like, when you think of the way a comic book artist, like the stereotypical way a comic book artist like historically draws a woman like with a ridiculously small waist and big breasts. Yeah, that was how she was portrayed in the 3rd series in here, which was a little like off-putting because she looked like such a normal person in the rest of the volumes, and so it was a little bit of a bummer to see them kind of like go to that cliche in the 3rd story in this volume. But other than that, like, let me just show you the art styles. It's always black and white, and they're very, for the most part, very kind of almost cartoony line work kind of art that I like that style a lot. The other interesting thing about Tara Chase is that this character has also moved into novels. Greg Rucka's written 2 novels about her as well, and that's what I read featuring her before this. I'd read those 2 novels, which I loved. And at first when I read those, I didn't even know she was a comic book character too. They were like kind of standalone adventures. You didn't have to know. You didn't have to have read the comic book to read those. I read them. They were great. Some of the best action adventure kind of spy fiction I've ever read. And I'm not normally like a big spy fiction kind of guy, but I loved those, and I was very excited to check out this comic book. It lived up to my expectations. It was awesome. It was great. I recommend checking it out. There's 4 volumes in total of this. I only read the first 2 so far. The other thing about these are they're very meaty. Sometimes you'll spend like $20 on a comic book collection or a graphic novel or trade, and you'll be done with it in like a half hour, and you'll be like, wow, that was a fast $20. These are very meaty. It took me a while to get through these. So definitely get your money's worth. I think they sell for $20. There's 4 volumes total. So I really recommend Queen and Country. It's pretty great. Go check it out. That's going to do it for me this time. I'll be back next week with a look at a few YA fantasy books. Talk to you then. Bye.